Hello and welcome to another webinar by USB Certification. This webinar is about the recent changes coming up with CCS-102 version 3.1 and GOTS 7.0. USB certification has been auditing the conformity in accordance with the national and international standards and doing the certification for those standards for more than 20 years. Our fundamental philosophy is to make our customers feel that we are a business partner which adds value to their processes and to improve our service mentality with a view of continuous improvement. As USB certification, we aim to increase the competitiveness of our customers and make it sustainable with our national and international accreditations, authorities, representatives, solution partners, experts, and experienced professional staff. While reaching our vision of sustainable growth with our globalization strategy, operational efficiency, and strong infrastructure, we contribute to the development of the organizations which are certified by us with our independent and impartial audit approach and value-added services. Today's webinar will be presented by Selin Yıldız, our International Operations Specialist. Please keep in mind that the webinar is being recorded and the presentations will be shared with all our participants today. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, and you will be able to write from the chat box your questions, and some of your questions may be answered during the webinar itself in writing. So without further ado, I would like to leave it up to my colleague Selin. Selin, please.
Hello and welcome all. This is Selin from USB Certification, and today we will look up for new changes about CCS-102 Certification Procedure version 3.1 and Global Organic Textile Standard version 7 together. CCS-102 version 3.1 replaces version 3.0 and it's effective from July 1. And after October 1, all audits and assessments are performed using this new version. There are some requirement changes on that version actually. One of them is it is mandatory for the seller to provide second or third party quality test reports for inputs and outputs when applying for a transaction certificate. Also, we mentioned on that presentation article numbers that you can reference them. And we noted as it is not mandatory to submit composition test reports on TC applications. Composition test report is not required for each TC application and considered as a separate report. Actually, there are some few cases that certification body is asking composition test reports, but it is not communicated with that quality test report subject actually. It is another subject, and in some specific circumstances, certification body is asking composition test report separately. For technical parameter tests, we are seeing on my screen, there's a chart for specifying tests. For fibers, there are PC codes as well. And for fibers, fiber length in millimeter and fiber fineness in micron should be declared with test report. And for yarns, the yarn count. For fabrics, fabric GSM information and fabric construction information like end pinks per inch and yarn count. Sometimes in fabric area, fabric types can be changed, and according to fabric type, our fabric construction information can be changed according to, for example, some kind of knitting fabrics has no any information like ends and pickings per inch. But for woven fabrics, we are able to find that. So according to fabric type and production type, we are specifying the construction information. For garments and finished textile products, the fabric GSM for all fabrics with claimed material, and for down and feather, the field power information needed with quality parameter test report. Testing can be performed on first, second, and third parties. And let's look up together what is the first party and second party and third party. First party, a test report from the seller's own facility whose laboratory is approved by the buyer. In that case, if seller using their own facility and showing their own test report, their buyer should approve their laboratory with a declaration with sign and stamp. Second party, at the input stage, it is the test report from seller's own facility, and at the output stage, it is the buyer's test report. If you are making input process, then it is seller, and if it is output process, then it is buyer's test report. And third party, a test report from an accredited or unaccredited laboratory independent of a buyer and seller. As you very well know, sometimes brands or buyers choosing to work with third-party laboratories, then in this case, these test reports are also acceptable according to standard requirements. The following types of test reports are accepted for the input product. As a second party, the test report of your supplier or third-party laboratory is acceptable. For output product also, test report created by directly your company as a first party with a declaration of acceptance by the buyer, or buyer's test report as a second party, or test report for a third party laboratory. In that area, we can say that on output product, actually there's an easy way for sellers, then they can make their own test report if their buyer can approve them and given a declaration with sign and stamp like we are approving that they can perform these tests. For animal fibers and recycled fibers, actually there's a calibration named calibration 241, and in accordance with the latest calibration published by Textile Exchange, organizations working in the areas of animal fibers or recycled fibers will be exempt from requesting financial record and quality test reports until 31 of March when issuing transaction certificate if both of the following criteria are met. Actually, on screen, you are seeing that there's criteria 1 and 2 together, and both of the following criteria should be matched. First one, the raw material should be organic alpaca, responsible alpaca, organic mohair, responsible mohair, organic wool, and responsible wool. And together with these raw materials, the product includes at least one of the following product categories, like tops, undyed fibers, greasy wool, or greasy animal hair. With this calibration, actually, it is given a permission for not asking any financial record and quality test report, as we mentioned on our previous page, until 31 of March, if your raw material is one of the mentioned raw material like alpaca and wool, organic and responsible, and mohair as well. And at the same time, if your product categories, one of the specified category like tops, undyed fibers, greasy wool, or greasy animal hair. And also, the another part of this calibration is a further exemption. There are some cases, specific cases as well. It will not be required for any product quality test report for them. Also, again, until March 31. Criterion 1 is the raw material are reclaimed, recycled, and criterion 2 is the product is prior to the spinning process and intended for textile production. But again, we are checking these two criteria both together, and it should be a fully match. Like product should be before spinning process, which means fiber, and raw material should be reclaimed or recycled. If we are seeing that these articles matching all together, then we can accept these applications as a CB without any kind of quality test report declared until March 31. And another part of the CCS-102 is amendment and invalidation requirements. There are some changes, and let's look at together. The certification body shall invalidate a transaction certificate if the certification body learns that any of following apply. The organization presented falsified or fraudulent documents to obtain the transaction certificate. Then certification body shall invalidate the transaction certificate. And again, if certification body identifies that they issued the transaction certificate in error, the applicable unit input transaction certificate is invalidated. Automatically output TC should be invalidated because actually now we are knowing very well like TC is working as a chain. If their input invalidated, automatically we have to invalidate output TC as well. The claimed material, products are otherwise shown to be ineligible for the claim being made, or upon request from a seller. For example, when claimed material have been returned to the seller, then for that transaction, we have to invalidate the transaction certificate. And also there are few amendment requirements to downgrade the claim from GRS to RCS. TC can be amended to reduce the certified rate, to correction of typographical errors to be made in 14 days from the date of publishing. In that case, increasing the quantity of the product due to typographical errors also may consider under the typo errors. And to upgrade the claim from RCS to GRS. Actually, this is something new for us too, because normally we are always talking about the downgrade standard, but now we are considering some kind of upgrade from RCS to GRS. But as you can see, the order was eligible to be sold as GRS. So including not limited to the seller having GRS certification in place and all processing criteria being met. So basically, if we are wanting to upgrade the standard from RCS to GRS, then it should be fully matched with the standard requirements, with GRS requirements. And issuing certification body confirms that the transaction certificate has not been used as the input and any other transaction certificates, with confirmation from the buyer certification body if needed. We already issued a RCS transaction certificate, and now if we will upgrade the claim, then it will be invalid for RCS. So first, as a certification body, we have to make our research like it has not been used before, and if needed, we have to get the confirmation from buyer side or our client side and check with the buyer certification body. In case that some products are returned to the supplier for the claimed product quantity change. We already mentioned on previous page like invalidation as an invalidation requirement if the product returned to the supplier, all products, for example, sometimes manufacturers shipping the goods and after that there are some quality problems and buyers sending their goods back. In this case, transaction certificate should be invalidated. But if buyer making some kind of selection and separating the second qualities and saying that I am sending these second qualities back, then claimed materials quantity will be reduced. So for this reduce, we have to make amendment on transaction certificate with checking all the relevant issued documents like return transport documents, return invoice, and if needed, there are some kind of emails between them as a proof we can check. Then after that, we have to reduce the quantity according to these informations. Also, if it is proven that the name and address information of the consignee is incorrect, for correction of this information, we can demand the transaction certificate. For example, writing the name of the consignee company instead of the name of the buyer. There actually sometimes with human error it is mixing with each other. So for fixing that mistake, we are amending the transaction certificate. And in other cases, the revision is submitted to Textile Exchange for approval. Sometimes certification body is taking some kind of request that amending or invalidation, but if it is not matching with CCS-102 requirements, then we need standard owners approval, and we have to submit case by case for making these kind of amendments and invalidations. So basically, invalidation and amendment of transaction certificate processes cannot be provided except for these specified situations. And certification bodies are mandatory to notify the buyer and certification body of the buyer when the transaction certificate is invalidated or amended. That's why we are asking to our clients actually for if we are invalidating some transaction certificate, trying to get information of the buyer, because according to CCS rules, we have to notify buyer and buyer certification body for any kind of changing on that transaction certificate. The other topic is mass balance and volume reconciliation. The volume reconciliation of the companies is audited, recorded, and reported by the auditors of certification body during the annual audits. We specify it as annual audits, but actually it can be separated specific circumstances. But normally on annual audits, we are checking all these informations and documents. And accordingly, your input materials stock in your inventory that have not been entered into the USB approval system during the audit or that have not been approved, even if they have been entered, will not be accepted into the USB approval system if they are not submitted in full, complete, and correct form during the audit. If there are parts used in production that are not claimed from the product defined in your inventory, deductions will be made based on the amounts you declare, and it is not allowed to return the wrong deduction back to the stock in accordance with the program rules. And therefore, this is important that the certified companies record mass balance tables in full, correct, and complete form and submit them to the auditor during the audit. Actually, this is kind of important topic for both sides, for certification bodies and suppliers, because on audit part, we are facing with so many issues, like according to rules, you have to submit all your stock information, even it is in warehouse or shipped already or not arrived yet. If you already made some kind of buying process, then you have to submit all information about that claimed material physically or not physically. Sometimes you have to show some kind of document for proof that buying process, but you have to show and you have to enter on their mass balance sheet. And on audit part, after auditing is done, then auditors signing and stamping mass balance sheet and verifying with that sign and stamp your stock verification. They are making stock verification. And after that, according to that mass balance, actually we are, as a certification body, we are making the stock addition on your system. So if any kind of stock material is not declared before on your mass balance and auditor is not see it, is not check the documents for verification, then after that, it is not possible to enter it on our USB approval system. Our clients actually know him, but I think that on the other certification bodies using kind of similar programs, like it is a virtual stock and you are entering all your kilograms in it. And for making the output TC application, you are also using that input kilogram material for output material. So it is so important. If you have any kind of questions for declaring the stock material on audit process, please feel free for asking any kind of questions to auditor for following that pattern with auditor. On that page, again, we are listing that all products that need to be declared on the mass balance sheet are listed below. Stored product in finished or semi-finished with a transaction certificate from the supplier. Products that are in the warehouse during the audit but have not yet received the transaction certificate for that. Products shipped to the subcontractors within the scope of the company for contract processing. All product stocks that were produced and shipped within the validity period of the scope certificate before the renewal audit, but for which the TC for the output product was not issued. These are the main parts, main lists for declaring to the auditor. Another case is input transaction certificate verification steps. In CCS-102 version 3.1, actually there's a clear specification for input transaction certificate verification. If a certification body, the buyer's certification body, receives an incoming transaction certificate issued by another certification body, the seller's certification body, as a part of evidence to issue a new transaction certificate, the buyer's certification body identifies errors on incoming transaction certificate. The buyer's certification body shall take the following actions. Authenticate transaction certificate on Textile Exchange authentication website, which you can see there's a link on our page right now, and identify the errors and request that the seller certification body correct the transaction certificate. And after that, if the seller certification body is unable or unwilling to correct the transaction certificate, the buyer's certification body should follow the specified steps. First of all, notify the seller certification body's accreditation body of the issue and file a format complaint with Textile Exchange, including providing a copy of incoming transaction certificate. And if the buyer certification body is confident all required information is available and correct, proceed to issue the outgoing transaction certificate. Sometimes we are taking on our system some kind of input transaction certificates, and now, approximately 1 year, we are checking the financial records and invoices, transport documents for input transaction certificates as well. So when we are checking that, sometimes we are detecting some kind of problems on that document and on that TC. There are some typo mistakes and missing information, etc. In these kind of cases, we are turned back to our supplier and saying that it is not acceptable. We have to correct this input TC, or we have to revise it, etc. And sometimes we are getting answers on our suppliers like that. Okay, then I'm understanding that it's wrong, but still it is issued transaction certificate, so it should be approved and correct. How it can be wrong, and why you are saying that? Basically asking us like that, but normally we follow the same steps with CCS-102 until now, but now it's clear that if certification body identifies some kind of error, then it should be communication with the issuer, input issuer certification body, and asking for the revision or any kind of information. Then if it is not possible or certification body unwilling to do any kind of revision, then we as a other certification body should communicate with their accreditation body, and after that file a format complaint to Textile Exchange and sending the incoming TC copy to them. And if we are getting the information, correct information, no matter what, then we are trusting that can be used as input product, and still without separating these process, then we can issue the output TC. But for that kind of cases, we have to actually check case by case. Sometimes we are getting some kind of input TCs that it is not really possible to use on any kind of output product. And there's a note in there in the case that the seller certification body is no longer a licensed certification body for the standard. No modification for incoming transaction certificate will be possible. So the process, as we mentioned above, will apply again. We know that sometimes transaction certificate can be really old, so it is not possible to find the certification body because it is not no longer licensed. So in this case, again, we are following the same information as we mentioned. Financial record obligation in use of non-certified trader, and again another requirement clarified on CCS-102 new version. In case that a sale is made using a non-certified trader and applied to a TC for this sale, it is mandatory for financial records and the other documents like invoice or transportation documents, etc., transmitted from the seller to the non-certified trader and from the non-certified trader to the buyer to be evaluated by your certification body. Sometimes on manufacturing side, manufacturers use non-certified trader companies for making their trading process as well, for making only trading part. And in this case, they are issuing an invoice and transport document to the non-certified trader, and non-certified traders issuing separate invoices and transport documents to the final buyer. In this case, with that new requirement, we have to check both sides, invoice, transport documents, and with that invoice related, the financial records as well. So additional transport document declaration is also another topic on CCS 102. If there is another document declared or mentioned by the relevant company for shipping, for example, country by country, companies using different document types. One of them is shipping bill. And if company saying that we are using shipping bill, then we have to detailedly check and ask all kinds of transport documents. And sometimes it means a bill of lading or other documents by the shipping companies to show the transport. Actually, it is a complicated topic because country by country, these transport documents changing too much. But if basically the shipping company creating another shipping bill for that shipment, sometimes it can be three or more shipping documents altogether for representing only one shipment, then certification bodies should have seen all shipment documents together and verify. It is basically saying like that. If shipment companies creating more than one shipment document, then we have to see and verify all documents. Another topic is GOTS version 7. It is officially released. We already talked about the CCS-102 version 3.1, which is the Textile Exchange based document, but now we will talk about a bit the GOTS version 7.0, and it is a version 7 officially released in March 23 and effective for all certified entities and approved chemical inputs beginning of March 1. The transaction period starts on the day of release and lasts 1 year. Early adoption is permitted and encouraged for all entities even before the effective date. and all audits and assessments conducted on or after 1 of March shall be conducted according to GOTS version 7. There are some basic fiber rules on GOTS version 7. The use of any combination of the fibers specified shall not exceed 30%. Pre-consumer waste obtained during the processing of GOTS goods, final or intermediate products, organic, natural, vegetable, and animal fibers derived by mechanical recycling allowed to be used as additional fiber in the production of other GOTS products. The total use of synthetic fiber blends recycled from pre- and post-consumer waste limit has been reduced from 30 to 20%. The total use of synthetic fiber blends recycled pre- and post-consumer waste limit has been reduced, as I said, and there are some fibers accepted as synthetic fibers, and it is polyester, polyamide, polypropylene, elastomultiester, and polyurethane. And as a summary, pre-consumer organic materials recycled from GOTS products can be used as additional fiber up to 30%, and the use of recycled synthetic fiber limit has been reduced from 30 to 20. And there's an example like the elastane you will use in product you will produce as GOTS. If it is conventional, it can be used at maximum rate of 10%, and if it is recycled, it can be used at minimum rate of 20%. However, this recycled input product must also proven with a TC as usual. The use of polyester is prohibited under GOTS 7 as well as GOTS, the other version 6, and conventional cotton and in conversion cotton in first-hand use, recycled will not be accepted as input product in any form. For GOTS 7, actually, we can summarize like that. There are two different sites. One of them is synthetic materials, recycled materials. On old version, it is allowed up to 30%, but now it is allowed up to 20%. One of them is that. And the other one, if there's a recycled material recycled from GOTS mechanical, then we can use these material up to 30%. It is allowed by the new version. So basically, our new requirements on topics like that, maybe we can check a bit on our chat box if there's any kind of questions about these new requirements.
Thank you very much, Selin. So if any of our participants has any questions, it's a good time if you want it to be answered live. But you can also submit your questions after this webinar using the email addresses that you see online. And for those who participated after the webinar started, I would like to state again that all webinar slides and webinar recording will be shared with our participants. And also, if you haven't done so, please subscribe to our newsletter from our website. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And you will see the recording of this webinar and also all the past webinars in our YouTube channel. So while we're waiting to receive your questions, maybe it would be a good time to kind of like repeat some of the things we said. Quality test parameters are a big issue these days. So maybe it would be a good idea to make you understand why the program owners are asking for these parameters in the first place. So it's very simple. There's input product and there's the output product. There's a quality level for the input product, such as the fiber length, fiber fineness, for the inputs of yarns, and also the yarn count, as like yarn as an output product. So the idea here is to compare the quality level of the input product with the quality level of the output product, and to check, is it actually achievable to make that product out of that input material. There's a requirement that has been given by the program, and also it's obligation of certification bodies to check that. You can refer to the table shared by Selin in her slides about what these test parameters that we are looking for, and where these test reports are actually coming from, which one are accepted and which one are not. That was a new introduction about the acceptance of first-party test reports when it comes to quality test reports. So first party means your laboratory, your own facilities laboratory produces the test report. So it can be something simple like checking the GSM value of a fabric. Doesn't matter as long as you put that under record, and as long as you get an official statement from your buyer saying that they accept those results. You can submit both the test report and the declaration together, and all certification bodies will accept that for the textile exchange programs. Also, there was a recent discussion about the composition test reports. So, as Selin mentioned, those are required. I would like to repeat that those are not required during the TC application. So, for composition, the system relies on the composition calculation. So that means you submit the percentage of input materials, and our system calculates according to your inputs what are the net weight, what are the certified weights according to your inputs in our systems, in certification body systems. And also you declare official papers like shipment documents or invoices where you indicate the total weight of these values. So when we compare, there shouldn't be a significant difference. Composition test reports are not required because a composition test report, universally, laboratory test results, they vary between minus and plus 3%. So even if you have such deviation in the composition calculations, the laboratory test reports will not be able to catch that. So that means if there's no more than 3% deviation between the composition calculations for input and output, then you are fine. But if there's some significant difference, your certification body may ask for additional proof that why there's such a difference. Composition test reports may be asked depending on the traceability that the auditor is asking for during your annual audits. So that means you should be able to show for that type of product, that part of product line, what are the composition test reports that you got. The idea here during the audit is that you should be able to show that you have a system that is able to make these composition calculations, meaning that according to the input that you use, you are able to calculate the percentages in the output. And and you're also showing the auditor that with kind of like a system check, you're able to verify with composition test reports that your system is working properly. So that means you're able to make these calculations properly. But as we said, it's not required during the TC applications. So I'm not seeing any questions here, but since you are sharing your valuable time, we will continue to share some other tips with you to consider in your operations. Annual audits have two mechanisms. This is kind of like the takeover of a register and to check that your system works functionally and properly. These are called volume reconciliation and traceability exercises. So volume reconciliation means you are submitting a lot of documents and TC applications to your certification body system. So it's like a bank account. So we take the bank account statements that is with us, go on site to your facility and check your records and your own mass balance table against our mass balance table to see if there's any difference. So some of the materials may have already been used, produced, and shipped. So you should be able to show that in your mass balance table. You may be asking why some of the inventory is missing, claimed material. You may be able to show your production records. Some of your stock may be still in the production line. Maybe you still haven't received any TC application yet. That's why you haven't made the TC application. So you should be able to show all these things during the volume reconciliation. Traceability exercise is where our auditors do random sampling, which our audits are based on, do random sampling on your previous transaction certificates and trace the whole paper trail back to the gate. So that means you should be able to show all your shipment documents and it should match your records in the mass balance. You should be able to show the financial records and such. And during the traceability exercise, they may be also asking the composition test report to verify that your composition calculations are correct in the mass balance table. I still don't see any questions, so I would like to mention something specific here. Textile Exchange has updated scope certificate, TC policy, and templates. So if you go to Textile Exchange website and if you go to their document library, you will see a new set of documents. It's not in effect yet. It will get into effect starting in January 1st, 2024. So there's 2.5 months ahead. There are significant changes for certification bodies, and there are some minor and major changes that concern our suppliers and brands. So we will be making a webinar about these changes pretty soon. So if you are following our newsletter, if you are not following our newsletter, please do so to be aware of the upcoming webinar. And if you are already our client, you should be able to see the news about this webinar through the USB Prova system and the notification area once it arrives. And I would like to repeat it again. The new policies are for scope certificate policy, transaction certificate policy, and their templates. So that means there will be a little revision how scope certificate template and TC policy template will look like. It's just been released. It hasn't been more than 10 days. And the transition period will start in January 1st, 2024. That's something that you should take into consideration. We are not seeing any questions, but as we said, like you will be able to send questions to Sevgi and Selin after this webinar. Thank you very much for all you joining. And we will be sharing the webinar slides and recording in the next few days. Thank you very much.
Thank you.